All right, you're back with the Italian sports guys. Bada-Boom.
Bada-Bing.
Hey, Kyle, we'll move on to the NFL draft, of course, and starting with our beloved Saints. Good to be a strong roster where you don't have to really, jump for need versus taking the best player available. But there are some key spots I think the Saints will look at. A couple things I think that will impact how the Saints set up with the draft. I say, number one, this is a win-now team. So we're not going to draft any guys early in the first, second, third round that are going to be developmental projects. They're going to look for impact players. Number two, I talked about this last year. Sean Payton, when he talked about the Super Bowl teams and how fast those teams were, he said those were the two fastest teams in the league. I think you're going to look for impact players, guys with team speed who can really impact offenses and defenses. And number three, it's maybe a little more difficult to do some deals because of the logistics of this draft, and everybody be kind of separate a little bit. I wouldn't mind the Saints moving back if they can't get the player they're looking for late in that first round we talked about. But you got to have a willing participant too. But I think free agency, of course, impacts what you get in the draft as well. Any thoughts on where the Saints what the Saints are likely to go for first round?
You made a great point about Peyton saying that stuff during Super Bowl week, because sometimes it does let you kind of lead what he's where his mind is, and what his process is. As much as I think he wants to become a faster team like that, I also think it's a copycat league. So I go back and forth with this. Yeah, he wants to become a step faster and just that much slicker. But then the re-signing of Pete, back to what we mentioned in the other segment, is that maybe we're leaning more towards being a road-graded team. Doesn't mean you still can't have fast wide receivers and whatnot, but I think you're going to see is more speed on the defensive side of the ball too. I think maybe he's trying to get a little more athletic on that side of the ball. So good points, but I think from where I sit, I agree. If the player's not there, absolutely trade back. It does take a partner, but I think there's going to be one of these wide receivers that somebody else really, really wants, that they may be willing to pull a trigger on a move, and we'll pick up some multiple picks. But also, you said win now. And if there's a player he thinks that's going to make a difference, going back to the comment about copycat league, back to that Vikings game, we got beat up up front in the interior box. And so, you got two top flight defensive tackles out there, and Kinlaw and Derek Brown, both are going to definitely be gone by the time the Saints pick. Then you look at some of the other defensive linemen. I mean, the Gross Matos kid out of Penn State is a defensive end. Caleb Von Chason is an edge guy. So if you don't, if something doesn't happen where one of those guys falls, or the Saints don't move up to talk about the interior guys, move up to get them, and that's highly unlikely, then you're looking at maybe saying, okay, we like this guy next best, then we can get him over here and pick up another pick, then let's do it. So I think you're going to see more movement towards the top of this draft than anybody can imagine right now.
Yeah, a couple of things you mentioned. Well, I think in terms of the speed aspect of it, I think you're right. I think they could be looking more for speed on the defensive side, but don't discount. Even though I mentioned a free agent wide receiver coming in at 33 years old, I still think there's a good chance we go and get a guy at wide receiver, maybe not in the first round pick, but somewhere along the way, maybe even jump from 3 to 2 if they need to, because it's a deep wide receiver, really, really deep wide receiver draft. And in terms of the impact of that speed, could be on the running game. I mean, San Francisco uses a lot of those reverses with those wide receivers, and I think that may be what's in his head offensively. What about, Colin, we mentioned defensive side, the guys with speed and impact players. It's not lost on Sean Payton that a lot of locals have been saying, how can you guys let all these LSU guys get away in the draft as good as they've been in the NFL? And I think that's not lost on him. He's mentioned that a couple of times. We're very well aware of these LSU guys. Of course, it looks like, two guys that could be in their radar, Patrick Queen and also Caleb Von Chason, are more likely to go in that mid-first round. So, again, where you may have had to move up. So what do you think the possibilities those guys dropping? And if not, who else defensively you think the Saints would be looking at?
Well, let me say this from a draft standpoint. I think any GM in the league will tell you that Caleb Von Chason is going to go before Patrick Queen will. Both tremendous players and all that stuff, but I think every mock I've seen has Chason going no later than 19 and closer to 15 or 14, and very few have Queen as high as 19. Most have him in the 20s.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, you won't be comparing. You won't have the choice to pick between one of the two unless, again, you like one so much you want to move up. But with Caleb Von Chason, he's an edge player. He is 248, 250 pounds plus. To me, sounds crazy, but there's a lot of development there, and it goes against the win now thing. I see him as a guy who can be athletic enough to stand up and play off the ball as a linebacker and not just an outside linebacker. In the Saints 4-3 scheme, you don't really have the two Ricky Jackson, Pat Swilling go get the quarterback guys. That's what I think better suited for.
Yeah.
Plays the 3-4. So, maybe he is a hand in a dirt defensive end like that. But I think Patrick Queen is more or less the kind of guy that the Saints are looking for, and that helps because, again, he'll last a little longer, in my opinion, than K'Lavon Chaisson will. Patrick Queen is a guy I have going to the Saints in the first round at number 24 in my mock draft, and so do others. If you read if you watch all the national networks, he's a game changer. He wasn't even the starter at the other inside linebacker spot early on in the season at LSU, and he ended up having a tremendous season and got better every week and was the defensive player of the game in the national championship game. This kid is lights out fast. He's 4.50. He packs a wallop. He loves the game. He loves to play. You can see it. He's a running back in high school all the way through. They finally played him on defense a little bit his senior year at Livonia High School outside of Baton Rouge, just to give college coaches a look at him. But they needed him on offense. So that was his first move to defense, was that last year of high school. And Dave Aranda's system is not easy to pick up. And in 3 years, this kid has worked himself into a first-round draft choice.
Yeah, and the kid, he really shined in a national championship game as well. Got a lot of eyeballs on that one.
You watch one of those early plays where he's running downfield and he gets blindsided chasing a receiver. They called the flag, on a blindside block. You can no longer do that in college football. But he got popped. And when I'm telling you, as soon as his ass hit the ground, he was back up. And they called a penalty on Clemson, moved it back. But that tells you the toughness of this kid, because he got jacked. And his first reaction wasn't, all right, I got to get up. It was, I'm getting up, and I'm getting up fast. I think he's a tremendous open field tackler. I think he plays very, very well in traffic for a guy who's barely 230 pounds. And this guy's 19 years old. I don't even think he's beginning to scratch the surface on how great he can be. He may even grow a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay. But this is a guy who was all over the field, can play the pass coverage. You saw the big interception against Alabama. Very fluid, good in the open field. Goes back to his running back days. Can zip in and out of traffic and make pops. I think one thing he needs to do is maybe get a little stronger and maybe learn. And again, that comes with practice time and NFL programs and everything else. Learn how to fight off blocks a little bit better using your arms and your hands. And then that's something at the end that this Saint staff can teach you, So that's something you learn in the NFL game. The technical aspect of it is that much more involved. So this is a guy who, if he's there at 24, I think the Saints would be crazy to pass on him. The only other if he's gone as the first inside linebacker taken, look at the kid Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma. Very similar player, maybe a half step slower than Queen, but a little bit bigger. And a guy, again, team leader, defensive playmaker. So either one of those guys I'll be happy with at 24, but I'd really like to see him break the jinx of drafting an LSU player in the first round and take this guy.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think if Patrick Queen's there, the Saints jump on him, and I think they'd be tickled to death to get him at that spot. So how do you see the rest of the draft for the Saints falling down, Kyle? I mean, we talked about some other needs. They still may wide receiver in the right spot, maybe third round, and maybe moving up into the second with the depth of that position. Where are the other needs, and what do you see maybe falling back into those later rounds? Some guys you think might be gems that may be diamonds in the rough, so to speak.
To your point earlier, great point about, Emmanuel Sanders is he's been around for a little bit, so maybe a little bit injury prone. So you want to have a safety valve in that spot. We mentioned Deontay Harris, maybe not. The kid that LSU fans and Louisiana fans will be quite familiar with, the Devin Duvernay kid out of Texas, who had a tremendous game against LSU. I think he hit almost receiving 12 catches, long touchdown. He's a beast with the ball after his catch, and he's a 5'11" guy. He's just very, very fast, and he's got a running back's build. You and I talked about that with Jamar Chase, about how about some receivers are just built like running backs. It's a game changer. Yeah. There are other guys 5'11", 200 pounds like he is. They don't have legs like tree trunks, low centers of gravity. That all comes into play when you're running with the ball. Do you know how to run? Do you just avoid contact at all costs like a lot of receivers do? Or do you mix it up and try and break tackles like the good ones do? Yeah. Devin Duvernay is that type of player if he's there in the third round when the Saints pick, and I think he will be. Another guy to keep your eye on is Lynn Bowden Jr., Kentucky guy. He was a wide receiver for 3 years at Kentucky. Their quarterback got hurt. They moved him to quarterback. He played quarterback in high school, but he was a running guy and sacrificed for the team. Had a tremendous year, ran for 300-plus yards, I think, in a bowl game, something crazy like that, and led his team and won it with a pass in the last second against a pretty good Virginia Tech defense. So I like Devin Duvernay there, or possibly Lynn Bowden Jr., the all-everything kid out of Kentucky, if they stick at wide receiver. If not, if they go DB and he's still there, Damon Arnett is a corner out of Ohio State, plays opposite Jeff Okudah, who's going to go in the top 3 or 4 picks. This kid's the real deal, too. Don't sleep on this guy. So Patrick Queen at 1, Devin Duvernay in the 3rd round. The Saints don't have a 2nd-round pick. I mentioned the other guys as fillers there. In the 4th round, I think they go back to shoring up the linebacker spot. All right, look at this roster right now. Okay, we lost A.J. Klein. Kiko Alonso is not going to be in the mix at least the first half of the season if he's back at all.
Yeah, right.
Alex Anzalone will be there for the first half, and history shows us he won't be there for the second half. Who knows? Maybe Alonso comes in healthy and takes over for Anzalone when he gets injured. And then you look at Craig Robertson, who's a guy who fills the gaps and good special teams guy. Caden Ellis is a guy that was coming on strong and having a good camp, but he's a 7th-round pick from last year, and he tore his ACL in training camp. I think this kid's going to surprise a ton of people this year, but you just can't count on that yet. So I think they go back and grab a linebacker in the 4th round. Craig, 2 guys I have my eye on. There is a guy who's got first-round talent out of Mississippi State named Willie Gay. Ran a 4.49, big guy, can really move. But he just wasn't – he was very good, but he wasn't great. And with that skill set, he should have been great. Now, I don't know if it had something to do with the locker room, but, you get these guys who are 21 years old, feel invincible, and feel like an alpha male in a college locker room. That changes a lot when you get to the NFL. There are dudes there who will set you straight, and the Saints have a very strong leadership group in that locker room. So maybe he shuts his mouth, stays out of the drama, because he seemed to be involved in a lot of drama. Got to fight one of his players, punch a quarterback in the face, stuff like that. Got suspended. But he is an incredible talent. So if they're going to take a risk on a guy, look at Willie Gay in the 4th round on Mississippi State, because I think he'll fall because of the character problem. Another guy, flip the other side of the coin, overachiever, made a tremendous amount of tackles, Evan Weaver out of the University of California. Inside linebacker guy, not super fast on the clock, but always seemed to be in the right spot to make a bunch of tackles, got good size, and Evan Weaver out of Cal. In the 5th round, I have him taking a flyer on another wide receiver, Tyler Johnson, 6'1", 205 out of Minnesota. The Minnesota team was undefeated until towards the end of the season. P.J. Fleck, keep rowing, keep your oar in the water. The Golden Gophers had a tremendous offense this year, and Tyler Johnson was the best player on that offense. A big-time wide receiver, but because this draft is so deep in wide receiver, I think he's going to fall there. And you mentioned it earlier again. Don't think the Saints don't want to take chances on guys, and like San Francisco did with that jet sweep with Pharaoh Cooper, I believe, and they ran a lot with Sanders even at his age. Antonio Gibson is a 6 foot, 229-pound running back out of Memphis who ran a 4.39 40. He's not pretty much a one-year wonder, but don't dismiss this kid as just a real fast guy that we've always seen guys who look the part but never become the part. This is a guy who's had some ups and downs on the field. He's off the field. I don't know anything about him. He's a wonderful guy. But I think that's a kind of guy they'll take a flyer on that can be an Alvin Kamara type clone, because Kamara's contract's coming up. You got to start looking at that, that type of thing. So Patrick Queen at 1, Devin Duvernay in the 3rd round. 4th round, I'm going to go with the kid out of Cal, Evan Weaver. I don't think the Saints want to tinker with that locker room. So I'll say Evan Weaver out of Cal. In the 5th round, the wide receiver, Tyler Johnson out of University of Minnesota. And then 7th round, running back, University of Memphis, 6 foot, 229, Antonio Gibson. And the undrafted free agent part comes up, and I think you're going to see the Saints try and add some help at DB and, again, at wide receiver and linebacker.
Yeah. Well, I think you mentioned the Weaver kid from Cal. I think linebacker seems to be a position where you can, if a guy doesn't have maybe all the measurables of the 1- and 2-round guys, but if he has good instincts, then he can still sometimes find a spot in this league. If you look at really good linebackers, they don't work off blocks. They beat blocks. They beat guys to the spot, and they anticipate before the block gets there. So a lot of times if a guy has the right instincts and the right mindset, he can he can work, kind of make up for those other things he may lack in terms of physical skills.
I think Patrick Queen has first-rate instincts to that point. Again, you're talking about maybe somebody you can get in there that can help as well. A lot of times last year, the Saints had 3 safeties and 2 linebackers in.
Yeah.
So these linebackers, then that's fine. It worked a lot. Saints had a good defense last year. But, that's a 4-down lineman, 2 linebackers, 3 These guys are playing in some serious space. You better be able to move. I thought Klein, again, was good. I think DeMario Davis is exceptional.
Yeah.
But you're razor thin when it comes to depth. And right now, if you are going to play that 2 linebacker set, and if Anzalone stays healthy, or if Kiko Alonso comes back, or if you get the guy you want in the draft and he's ready to play right away, or if you pick up somebody else's trash and make it your treasure, that's 4 ifs, okay? Hope is not a strategy.
That's right. Prophetic words there. Looking back at our own LSU Tigers, Kyle, you notice I wore my purple tonight because of the LSU. It could be a historic night.
It looks like wrinkled navy blue because you're in Corona laundry.
Yeah, that's bad resolution.
I'm the only guy in uniform here.
There you go. But look at the LSU Tigers. Could be a historic night. Obviously, Joe Burrow going to be the top overall pick. You got the linebacker we mentioned, the edge rusher we talked about. Justin Jefferson is a guy who's really got picked up momentum late in the year. Again, showing in the national championship game. Christian Fulton is, could be late first round. We're thinking probably. And then Delpit could squeeze in early second, or maybe in late first round. So it could be a really historic night for those guys.
Look, this is what many people are saying is the best team in the history of college football. They certainly had the best season in the history of college football.
Yeah.
They're going to have the #1 overall pick. They're going to have 4 or 5 other guys go in the first round. I mean, it all adds up. It was a tremendous, tremendous season for a group of very talented players who put it all together on the field. I mean, every box you check on these players is a positive for the guys you mentioned. You're going to tell me that Grant Delpit – look at the word. Grant Delpit might slip into the first round.
Yeah.
Might slide into the first round. Grant Delpit. Yeah. Not to mention the guys before him, Burrow, Chason, Christian Fulton, Justin Jefferson, Patrick Queen. Maybe even Cushenberry is going to go in the first 2 rounds. I mean, and I'm probably leaving somebody out. What a serious deal.
Yeah.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, another guy who's going to go in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that to me is just, it's amazing. And they keep comparing Edwards-Helaire to Darren Sproles. And we know how much, you mentioned Malcolm Jenkins as being the guy Peyton regrets most letting go. The other is Darren Sproles.
Yeah, right.
Don't be, if you don't think they can come to a deal with Kamara. And they were joking with each other back and forth directly on Twitter, Sean Payton and Alvin Kamara. So I know that relationship is pretty good.
Yeah.
And Peyton loves the guy, but he's got to get himself right. I thought last year something was off. So
yeah,
if
they're
not sold, look out.
Yeah. Looking at the larger picture of the draft, Kyle, just overall, I think it's a really intriguing draft. Number one, because there's nothing else to talk about in the sports world right now. So I think there's a lot of buzz about the draft for that reason. Number two, because you have some really –
I saw the Thrill in Manila the other day. We could break that down again. It's a fight from 40 years ago.
Yeah. Also have, of course, you got some QBs are going to go high, and there's some different opinions with regard to his readiness and how he's going to overcome those injury issues. You got a lot of depth at certain positions, as we talked about, and you got a lot of LSU guys. There's a lot of buzz locally too. But after a lot of buzz, it looks like Joe is going to go to Cincinnati. None of those deals that people have been talking about are going to come through unless something surprises us late. But then the question marks begin. We got 2 more teams, really Miami and the Chargers perhaps, that are in the quarterback need position. And so it really kind of comes down to where do they size up to it in terms of his readiness, number one, but also his durability long term. Even if you think he's going to be ready to play soon, does that injury history kind of get to you? And that's really going to set the tone for the rest of this draft in the first round.
I think Tua Tagovailoa is a guy that if he had no injuries, or very few injuries, if the injury part wasn't a concern, he's a guy that coaches and most certainly fans couldn't wait to see play. He is a guy with quick twitch, read react skills, quick release, cannon for an arm, accurate passer, and I still wouldn't take him too early.
Yeah,
there are a ton without the ifs. He has the wow factor, but quite frankly, a lot like Baker Mayfield. You know, he got on the field, he did great early on. I see some of that playing out for this kid, unfortunately, where how much better will he get than he is now?
Yeah.
Look, he had for the most part, he had the best offensive line, the best receivers, and the best running back around him. And don't get me wrong, the kid performed. But to your point, he's a health risk. His Wonderlic score, and I know it's not everything, was a 13.
Yeah, not very impressive. I saw that.
Yeah, that Joe Burrow's with a 34 if you want to make a comparison. Okay. So I think if you put him in the right system, I think he'll be very good. But I don't think he's going to be healthy and ready to play for another few months anyway. If Miami doesn't take him at 5, I think the Chargers will grab him at 6. And then they'll start the year with Tyrell Taylor or whatever his name is, Tyrod Taylor, excuse me. And he'll be their guy early on, and they can groom this kid. But the floor and the ceiling are far apart for this kid. I hope he does well. He's a tremendous young man. I loved watching him play. At the same time, I don't know what he's going to turn out to be. You know, it's not like he's going to get hit less and treated any nicer in the NFL. These are dudes coming at you. So,
yeah.
Are you just staring at me with your eyes wide open and not blinking on purpose, or is it?
No, you got a little buzz on your end. I think it's hard to say. Is it the same thing on my end?
Screen frozen here.
Yeah, but lose a little connection there, I think.
Yeah, you're sitting still. You're not. There you are. There you go. All right, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, and then you've got a guy who's kind of an intriguing guy too, Jordan Love, who has a rocket of an arm. They're kind of making the comparison to the kid from Buffalo that got drafted a couple of years back. Big rocket, maybe a project to work on.
Jordan Love, you talk about Josh Allen as a comparison, the guy from Wyoming. Jordan Love, I saw up close at the Senior Bowl in workouts, not the game, but workouts early in the week when they do a bunch of different things with these kids. And Justin Herbert was kind of the main quarterback there. Burrow didn't play, didn't have to.
Yeah.
And so all the buzz was really around Justin Herbert. And when they did the drills and they did throwing drills, I'm telling you, to me, the 2 days I was there, the ball flew out of Jordan Love's hands better and quicker and more accurate and more natural than anybody else's there, including Justin Herbert. That's what I saw. I'm not an NFL scout. I'm just telling you, like, for the record, I called the same deal on Daniel Jones a couple of years ago, and everybody was poo-pooing him.
Yeah.
So I like everything this kid has. He is uber talented. 2 things. As a junior with a pretty good offense, a really good offense, and experienced receivers, he threw 36 touchdowns and 4 or 6 interceptions. And the next year, the numbers were like 22 and 19. And to top it off, I think he was in a car where some kids got pulled over and had something they shouldn't have. And so I don't know how far that's going to go, but I like a lot of things about the kid.
Yeah.
He's incredibly talented, and he's big and he's fast.
Yeah. The Herbert kid out of Oregon, it's intriguing. A lot of people have, Miami taken to it and then him going to the Chargers. Maybe I haven't seen enough of him to make a really good evaluation, but what I've seen of him, it just seems like there's a little something missing. I don't know if it's just because he's kind of a passive guy and doesn't have that leadership quality. There just seems to be a little bit not something missing that I'm looking for in a quarterback who's a leader. You know what I'm saying?
You're 100% spot on from everything that I've heard, and I've, been able to scour some of the shows lately, as a lot of us have.
Yeah.
He is very, very good for 3.5 quarters. I don't with 4 minutes left in the game, you need to see more from him when they're down by 5 points.
Yeah.
And analysts alike say they haven't seen it. He's got to take that next step. And at this point, to me, you either have that or you don't.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to be a take charge guy, and you have to. And look, he grew up in not far from Austin Stadium in Eugene, Oregon. Okay.
Yeah.
If there was ever a program and a game and a team he was passionate about, it'd be the Oregon Ducks, and you never saw a lot of passion from him.
Yeah.
Now, surreal, lead by example, not a big talker. That's fine. But you need to get it done when it matters most. And for a quarterback, you look at guys like Drew Brees, the Elways, the Tom Brady's over the years, guys who, Montana got it done with the money on the line, and they brought their team back from seemingly insurmountable odds.
Yeah.
A lot. Regularly. Fairly often. I don't know that he's done it once. In the game against Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl, they were hailing him for the comeback win. Kid fumbled 3 times, and Wisconsin turned it back over to them. And it was, he didn't put the team on his shoulders and carry him that day. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and again, you're talking about a guy they're projecting in the top 5 or 6 picks, so you don't want too many question marks when you're that high up the draft. Albeit Tua's got the injury issues.
Yeah, I would absolutely, without a doubt, not take him before I took Tua.
Kyle, any other thoughts on draft? In terms of the overall draft picture playing out, any surprises you see? Anything you think we need to watch for in the draft that's going to be kind of key?
I don't think you're going to see a ton of trades on draft night because it's difficult.
Yeah.
I think you put it this way: if you see them, they will ironed out the day before.
Yeah.
Because nobody this system, this wireless Zoom meeting stuff over the phone, video teleconferencing to make these kinds of moves. They're too important. So you may see some stories leak here and there. And if that happens, I think you see subsequent trades for people to go up and get who they want. For example, let's say that the Lions are on the clock at 3 and the Patriots trade up because they want a shot at so-and-so. Well, normally that happens, right? You might talk before, but you make those decisions pretty quickly on draft night.
Yeah.
Now, I think those moves are going to have to be made. And if word gets out that somebody moved up to get somebody's guy, somebody's going to go to somebody else and try and move up. I think that's where you're going to see some, I don't know if you call it excitement, but maybe some confusion. So I think you're going to see some of the teams in the 20s move up for key players that they want, some teams that are close.
Yeah, I also heard some teams maybe, sometimes they like to wait to the right at the end of that time slot or whatever. They may be making their picks a little bit sooner because they don't want to get caught in one of these technology issues where they fail to get their pick in. So they may not be waiting as long if they know who they want. But you're right. Any of these deals that need to be made, you kind of have to line up some things, at least have those conversations beforehand so the teams know you're expecting a call if something comes up.
You got to set parameters. You got to have parameters. Tell you, interesting thing I just read as we're talking here. The Detroit Lions IT director of technology will be in an RV out front of the general manager's house during the because he's not allowed to be in the house.
Right.
I don't know if something breaks. Can he run in then? I don't know.
Yeah, it's strange times. Well, they're trying to set everybody on a level playing field. So they nixed the Saints plans to have the draft at the Dixie Beer Brewery, the brewery out in New Orleans East. So we'll see how it goes.
That is textbook Roger Goodell. If it gives the Saints any type of advantage, and I don't want to, be the crybaby and the spilled milk stuff over here.
Yeah.
But it just seems like any break that they can catch for the last few years, it does not go the Saints' way from compensatory picks on down.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Kyle, about wraps up. Anything else before we shut it down?
I'm ready, Craig. I'm excited. Look forward to doing a recap show and giving the Saints and the rest of the NFC South a grade when this is all said and done. And, we didn't mention the Buccaneers adding Tom Brady. And then today they traded for Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah.
On paper, that looks great. Don't know how healthy Gronkowski is going to be. Don't know how much I'll get out of him. But Tampa Bay, as they're calling the Buccaneers now, is going to be very interesting to watch. But I don't think he's going to have quite the success there that he did with Belichick and the Patriots. I just don't.
Yeah, well, a couple of things there. Number one, there is some talent on that roster, but I think you're right. I think Gronk's done. I think it's just a matter of – it's kind of like when LeBron brought, Dwayne Wade over for a couple of years to be with him. I think he just wants his pal to play ball with for a couple of years late in his career. Kind of a safety blanket that somebody he knows and is friends with in his new surroundings. But you're right. Even when you have – we've seen this before in the NFL, right? When you have a lot of talent, but you put it together for the first time and throwing all these pieces together, it's not necessarily going to gel right away. And it's not a given just because you have talent, you're going to win. Well,
how much is Gronkowski going to practice through camp with his injury history?
Yeah.
And how does that work within the framework of a team with guys who are grinding? The young tight end, O.J. Howard, kid out of Alabama, is a rising star. Yeah. I mean, look, he's got holes in his game, but more or less rising star. How is that going to look to the guys when I'm taking all the reps at practice and you're going to start throwing to this guy because he's your boy?
Yeah.
Watch that kind of stuff. Watch how that plays out. You got to earn your stripes no matter where you go. He's not Tom Brady. He's tight end Rob Gronkowski. I'm a big fan of hysterical, but. Yeah,
it's not exactly embracing your new teammates when you do pull a move like that.
Right, and I think his body can handle full training camp. He's going to try probably just to win over his teammates. and then you're back in the same old deal where your back and your knee are giving you problems. So.
Yeah. All right, whatever happens, of course, Italian Sports Guys, as Kyle mentioned, be back on the show with a recap to kind of walk through the Saints picks and took a big picture look at the draft. And again, just want to remind all the ISG Nation, stay safe out there. We hope things get back to normal fairly soon. We love to
Don't let up.
Don't let up. That's right. We'd like to be back in the studio together soon. Hopefully we will. But
watching it, social distancing.
That's right, bumps. And then, of course, we may play these games with no fans in the stadium or spaced out or something. But hopefully we'll get back to playing in the fall because we know our football means.
It won't be much of a change for the Falcons because they usually have 3 or 4 empty seats between each fan anyway. So, but the bumping crowd noise should come in handy for them.
Bada-boom, bada-bing. All right, folks. That wraps up. We are Italian Sports Guys.
Bada-Bing.
Bada-boom.